Waiting for YouTube here to pick up the connection. Come on. Ah. Okay, it looks like it is working. So, that just means that it did not engage with the correct... Huh. Let's do this real quick and see if that is properly showing up here. Yes, okay. Check 1, 2. Yes, okay. Bingo. All right. So, we've got the control room up. We've got that working. We can close this other window since apparently we're not utilizing that. Okay. I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's do this. Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Games Explained. I am Bridger. Good to be back on the mic here. It's been a while. We're going to take a look at Imperator Rome. Now, I know this is not a recent game. It's been out quite a while, but I was very unimpressed, along with plenty of other people, with this when it first came out. Even Stellaris was at a slightly better position when the game originally came out. So we're going to take a look at this today. And now that it's had its third patch, a couple of those have done some major reworks on the system that have significantly improved it. Is it good enough to really enjoy? I guess we're going to find out. I've been playing around with it a little bit, not really gotten too far into it, but I think I've got a good grasp on the new systems, and I'm happy to talk about them with you today and see if we can walk you through it, because in my opinion, this one is not as easy to grasp as Stellaris or the other ones that are much more well established, where the tooltips have been updated over time and the systems have been made easier and this and that, blah. So one thing I will point out is that I am utilizing a couple of mods, and these are the mods listed right here. Everything's activated except the music one because copyright infringement. But the only ones of real note here, the UI is just that. It's a UI mod. The couple by this guy here, who is this? Dragon Pants. He's got a very interesting concept for what he wants to do with the game, and I kind of like what he's done. These are mostly small tweaks. So the Siege one makes assaults a little bit more useful. The improved building one is probably the most extreme, but again, these aren't changes to huge systems, so anything I explain in the game today is going to be about the same. Generally speaking, the most important piece of this is that the pop ratio desired for settlements, instead of being 100% slaves, which makes absolutely no sense from a simulative sense, is changed to 10, 20, and 70%. Which makes a lot more sense to me. And then he made a bunch of small tweaks to the buildings and stuff. None of this is really huge. They're small changes. This is the big change, and it just it makes me feel better. All right, so let's jump back in here, and that is going to be start a new game. And what we're going to start a new game with? We're going to start with Rome, because Rome is awesome. And I know people hate seeing like the same power played all the time, and people have probably watched other games with people playing Rome, and there have been some improvements made to the other types of empires in this game, the tribes and the monarchies and things, but I like, and I know that Rome is kind of easy, but I still want to do it. So here's the other thing about this game here, is I don't claim to be an expert, but we're going to do our best explaining all the systems as best we can. So we've got our little event window here, which I'm going to stick up in this corner. I think it remembers where you put it. Put it up here. So let's start by going over the quick interface here. So everything in this game is baked into 3 different levels. So an individual area, like this area here, Fragile, that is a territory in the game parlance. And then you can see the larger thing when I select a single territory within this larger grouping, that is a province. And then even beyond that, if I can find it, here it is, there are regions. So you can see the Italia region is composed of, these, 5 provinces thereabouts? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 provinces. These are all the Italia region. And then that is how the game is organized. So you've got territory, then province, then region. And of course, you've got nations that control those different types of areas. Now, each territory in the game is either a settlement, that's the smallest form, or a city, or a metropolis. At the beginning of the game, I don't think there are any metropolises anywhere on the map. At least there aren't any in Rome for sure. So this is an example of a settlement, and it says so right there. Settlements have a lower population capacity than cities. However, they are more likely to produce resources than cities. They're more rural, so they produce more trade goods than a city, which is focused on a different kind of production, usually commerce and things like that. So you can also see that settlements don't produce that much. So even if you do try to stack a bunch of citizens in a settlement for some reason to produce research there, they're not going to be as effective as if they are in a city. And people don't want to move to settlements. If you have your population growing, they're not going to move out to the boonies, they're going to move into the cities. And that's recognized by the migration attraction and migration pop speed things right there. And what this... There are a couple other changes, but that's the main thing about settlements. Cities, on the other hand, have some bonuses. They have increased population capacity. They can have more building slots. That's probably the biggest difference between cities and settlements, is which buildings they can have and how many building slots they have. Settlements, by default, only have a single slot. Cities have many more. In fact, I believe it's based on population plus an additional number of buildings, because in this case, I'm a city and it's a capital territory. So settlements don't scale the number of buildings they have. Cities get a base of 2, and then they also get 1 for each additional population point, and the capital territory of any province gets an additional 1, if I'm not mistaken. Is this the capital city? Where's the capital? Capua is the capital. So we can see there, provincial capital, and it looks like the capital of the nation is the only one that gets the bonus, not the capital of the province. Okay, so anyway, that is what sort of differentiates settlements from cities, is that type of building and number of buildings that you can have. But there's one more thing. This game uses pops, similarly to how Stellaris uses pops. Pops are individual population units representing a particular subset of your empire. So if we take a look at Rome real quick and we open this up, we can see that there are 25 Roman Hellenic citizens. There are 4 Hebrew Jewish citizens. Then there are 21 Roman Hellenic freemen. Right, so each individual freeman pop in this case represents a Roman Hellenic, and if this was a conquered territory, maybe there would be 10 Roman Hellenic pops and 10 Italic something else pops, or Gaulish or whatever. So it's breaking this down into the different categories and telling you how many pops. So of the total of 40 pops here, that's civilization value. Of the total of 58 pops, this is how it breaks down, and each group has its own happiness level. This group of tribesmen is unhappy for these following reasons. This group of slaves is happy for these following reasons, etc., etc. Now, these pops are constantly shifting to try to essentially move to an ideal ratio between technically the 4 types. citizens, freemen, and slaves. Tribesmen are also a type of pop that you will find, but those would be far more common in the tribal areas of the game. So if we go over somewhere in Germany here, this is a tribal situation. They don't have citizens. Instead, they have tribesmen. So I think they might have citizens in there. If they have a city, they might have citizens. So here's this. These are all settlements, right? That's the thing. The reason they don't have citizens is because they don't have the civilization level and the population to get up to cities. Anyway, the point is, tribesmen are something that you don't find in the more settled areas, but you do find them in large numbers in the non-settled areas. They are not strictly better or worse to have. The problem is they are better in less civilized areas and worse in more civilized areas because they are less happy here. You can see that the civilization value of this territory reduces their happiness. Happiness directly impacts how much productivity a given pop has. So the tribesmen are less productive in areas that are more civilized and vice versa. So for me in Rome, I'm going to start with a decent amount of civilization. In this case, I'm starting with 40, with a max of 45 due to my government type and the technologies, etc., etc. And throughout the game, this is going to climb up, which allows for more population, and it's going to allow for happier people that aren't tribesmen, etc., etc. But what that means is as this climbs, the tribesmen that are in my territories get less and less productive, so I don't want them there. They'll have to shift into another population class. And that brings us back to the ratios here. So the optimal ratio is on the right-hand side here, and the actual ratio is listed on the left. So 50% of the pops in the capital of Rome here are currently citizens, but only 38% should be citizens based on the current status of the territory. Buildings are one of the main functions that adjust how many pops of each type want to be there. By default, what we're looking at with the mod that I have is, that's a bad example, here's a better example. This is the default ratio, desired ratio. 10% citizens in a settlement, 20% freemen in a settlement, and 70% slaves in a settlement. In the base game, that's 100% slaves and 0% anybody else. Makes no sense. Over the course of the game, all of your non-cities will just become purely populated by slaves. That's not obviously how the old world was, so that's why I like the mod that changes this. So this is the default. However, what if I wanted to build a building in here to raise troops? Put a training camp, try to recruiting centers, things like that. Well, if I built a barracks, one of the effects of building a barracks is local freeman desired ratio plus 50%. And that is a deceptive number. The way that this stupid ratio works is really not easy to grasp, but here's the way it works, right? So, you see here, 35 out of 50 is 70%. 35 divided by 50 is 70%. Okay. But why is it 50 in the first place? Why isn't it 70 out of 100? Well, because the way that these buildings work is you can build multiple buildings. So they can't just keep adding 50%, or if they wanted to raise the ratio of freemen, for example, to 50% instead of 20, they can't just add 50% each time. It just, the math wouldn't work out. So instead, what's going to happen is, right now, the base number is 5 citizens, 10 freemen, and 35 slaves. When you add all that up, you get to 50. So now you're taking, the percentages are the numbers of quote-unquote ideal divided by the total to get you the percentage. What the barracks actually does is it increases this from 10 to 60, and therefore it creates a 60% freeman in the area, because when you add 50 to the 50 that's already here, you get 100. So now the denominator of our thing is 100. So let's see if we can find an area that actually does have a training camp. That's a farming settlement. There's a barracks. So here's a perfect example. Instead of this number being 10, the barracks raises it by 50. Not 50%, but 50. That's where it gets confused, right? This says Freeman desired ratio plus 50%. It's not raising it by 50%. Ignore that percentile marker. It's actually raising it by 50. And this, by the way, works in the base. This is exactly how the base game works. The numbers are going to be a little bit different if you're not using the mod that I am, but this is exactly how the base game works. So, because we added 50 to here, we're now adding 60 plus 5 plus 35 equals 100. Now, if I add another barracks to this settlement, which I think there are ways to get another building slot, even in settlements, but if I added another barracks, just as an example, now we'd have, instead of 100 being the denominator, it'd be 150. And so we'd have 110 out of 150 is the number of freemen that we'd have. And we'd have 5 out of 150 and 35 out of 150. So that would rejigger around the ratios. That's how it's determining the desired ratio. Okay. But what does that have an effect? Obviously, it wants 60%, but there's only 45% here. So once we actually tick forward on the simulation here, you'll notice that there is a bar for promotion and a bar for demotion. So in any territory that you click on, you'll notice that there are different ratios that are desired and different things. This says, okay, there's not enough citizens here to reach our optimal, but there's too many of this. So if we were to let the simulation go forward, a slave is going to be promoted to one of these classes that needs a new one. So a slave is going to be promoted to a freeman in this case. And that's showing you how fast that's going to go. Every month it's 4.4%, and here's all the reasons why. When slaves promote, it's faster, blah, 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 blah. And you can also demote. If you have too many citizens, they'll demote to freemen or to slaves, depending upon which category needs more. So at the beginning of the game, these are all a little bit out of whack. You know, here's the settlement of Circei, obviously has way too many citizens in this particular settlement at the beginning, so a lot of them are going to, you know, balance out over time. So that is how populations can move up and down the social ladder within a given territory. And as I pointed out, you've got buildings that can control those ratios. A barracks is specifically for getting manpower. Freemen are your main source of manpower with the Republic of Rome. So freeman desired ratio goes up. So when you build a barracks, more citizens, more of the pops become freemen, which gets you more manpower, which also takes advantage of the barracks boosts to manpower. Other examples of this here, a slave estate is going to increase, so there's more slaves involved in a slave estate. Now, we found one of those over here. Let's do the math one more time on that. It wasn't this, that was the barracks. Here's the slave estate, farming estate. I don't know if we have a slave estate actually off the bat. What's a slave estate look like? It looks like that. I don't want to go through all the time and wait for it to tick over, but anyway, we do have a farming estate here, and a farming estate gives you no extra slaves, but it gives you some other bonuses related to bonus food and population capacity, and slaves needed for local surplus, which can give you more food, because I believe you can only build these in places that have a food production trade good. So that's how these works. Now, you cannot move any pops around unless they're slaves. That's a big change from earlier in the game when you had to manually move pops from one place to another. Now, population that isn't slaves will migrate from place to place. I think you can even, slaves might migrate too with their quote-unquote owners. I'm not sure. But you can move slaves around, so you'd pick the destination. I want more slaves here in my farming settlement, because that'll give me more grain, and then that can feed the big cities. But I can click here and say, I want to move, you know, from Fragile, I want to move a pop. This costs me money. So you buy the slaves and you move them to a different estate. So that is another thing that you can see going on in here. So the last thing that you can see going on, aside from promotion and demotion and the ratios involved and the happiness, which again directly correlates to productivity, is you can have natural conversion of population to the state religion and natural assimilation to the state culture. So when you've conquered a brand new section of the map that has a different culture or religion from you, initially that's going to make people unhappy. And so if we can, I don't know if we can find a spot where that is the case. Here we go. There's a Messapian culture, and that's part of the italic group, so that doesn't really count either. So I think Rome has mostly all italic cultures right at the beginning, so I don't think... here we go. So here's one. It's got Italician culture in Neapolis. So pretty much everybody here is Italiocean or Hebrew, which means that over time they're going to assimilate to the primary culture in Italy, in Rome, in our nation, and it's going to be a little slower because the dominant culture in this area is not our primary culture. So when we get 50%, Italic here, then this process will go faster. So you can see there's a bunch of different modifiers and things happening there. So that's happening at the top. And at the bottom, you have two other pieces. One is growth. So a population is going to grow based on various factors. And then down here is migration. Migration won't actually start happening until we tick over, start the time ticking. But the migration aspect is very important. This... let me close this. I guess it doesn't let me see. There we go. Migration attraction is what determines where your pops move around voluntarily, and I think also how fast they move there. So, if they're... it's similar thing to a ratio, right? Places with higher migration attraction are going to have more people move to them. But if we look at some place with a lower migration attraction, this doesn't mean people are going to move out of here until there's nobody left and they all go to the place with a higher migration attraction. It just means that there's like a desired ratio hiding in there. Again, that if this has a migration attraction of 4 and the territory next to it has a migration attraction of 8, I believe what that means is that given a population of, say, 20, 66% of them are going to be in the higher population area and only 33% of them are going to be in the lower population area. That's generally speaking how this is going to work. But migration only happens, A, within a province or adjacent provinces to each other. Adjacent territories. So Fundi might have people migrate to or from Rome or Tibur or Cures or any of those, but it also might migrate people to or from Venafrum or Capua. So they migrate all around within a province until they get fairly close to what the ideal ratio is in population spread amongst the areas, and then they also go between areas in a similar way. Now, migration attraction is something that's mostly controlled by whether something is a city or not, but you can also build some buildings that have an impact on it. I believe the provincial legation, even in the default game, does the same purpose in a sense. It tries to make something more attractive and bring people to it. So that's a territory building. And then there are other buildings, I believe, in the main area here that will increase migration attractiveness in a city. Although perhaps I'm mistaken. Yeah, actually, there's not much control you have over migration attraction. It's just that they attract more to cities and metropolises than they do to other places. Okay. So we're still talking a little bit more about how these individual territories function. It's important to understand how the interface functions with regards to this. Everything on this bottom section here is about the territory of Fundi. Everything on the top section here is about the province of Latium. So if I click on any territory in here, you can see nothing on the top changes because it's telling me about the province that I'm looking at. But all the things on the bottom do change. However, when I click onto a different province, suddenly I'm looking at a different set of statistics for the top. So top is province level, bottom is territory level. And of all the different things that you can see, we talk a little bit about civilization level. Civilization level basically has these various effects. They're all scaling, so it's a 0 to 100 thing. So because we have 40 civilization, we get +4 population capacity in this territory. If we had 20, we would only get +2. The supply limit goes up, barbarian growth goes down, etc., etc. The higher the civilization, the more the green numbers, and the less the red numbers, right? So that is what civilization does. It's pretty important, and it's also important that it gets higher and higher over the course of the game with technology and other things. So this is something that as you conquer the less civilized areas in the game, you will have to deal with this and find ways to improve it more quickly. One of the ways you can do that is coordinate urban development in cities to try to increase your civilization faster. There are also technologies and omens and all kinds of other things you can do. So that's the civilization. Areas may also contain a certain number of fortress levels, which works very similarly to other games. It helps defend it, makes it take longer for enemies to conquer the area. We've also got supply limits, which are affected by many things. Mostly they're affected by nearby rivers, the fact that you're the owner. In this case, the civilization value has a huge impact on supply limit, but also the type of terrain has an impact. So if we look at this, this is farmland. And farmland, I believe, has a higher supply level. No, I guess not. It's not implying supply limits. But this is similar to many other of the Paradox games, where the higher your supply limit, the more troops that can stand on that territory before you're starting to worry about attrition and feeding your guys. So that's strictly what this is about. Holdings. There are holdings in each province, and we'll get to those when we talk about characters. So this is the button you would use to found a metropolis or upgrade a territory into a city. As you can see, metropolises, we cannot do it unless it's the capital of a province. So Capua has this little Roman column in the middle here, and you can see here it's got the Roman column indicating that's a provincial capital. And a provincial capital, interestingly, so we've got a settlement, which is 2, a city, which is 3, and the provincial capital is 1. It's bizarre. So provincial capitals can be upgraded to cities, provincial capitals usually are cities, and they can be upgraded to metropolises. When you do that, it significantly increases the population capacity and things like that. And it gives you more building slots and all kinds of stuff. But it takes a long time and a lot of resources. You can see it costs right now 400 gold and 100 political power. And it needs an 80 population, so I can't even think about metropolises right now. And show average happiness. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know why everything's... don't show average happiness. I think that means show worst case happiness. That would be my guess. Alright, we'll leave that the way that it is. That's just a little thing from the new UI mod. So the recruit cohorts button, this is what allows you to build new different types of troops. A cohort is 1,000 soldiers, and they come in various types, from heavy infantry, light infantry, horsemen, etc., etc. We'll get to that later. But the other thing that you might see here is it shows you what the percentage of the pops are that are of the correct... It says 0%. Roman member in the italic group. Yeah, I don't know what this... Oh, that's probably conversion. It's a shorthand for what's going on with conversion and assimilation. Okay, so the 0% is how long until somebody else converts. And then this is showing growth, and this is showing growth speed, migration attraction, impact of province, loyalty. So loyalty is right here. The hand represents loyalty, and this bar represents how much it is. So we've got 100% loyalty here. Is there any province that is not 100% loyal? I think we start with all loyal provinces, it looks like. But loyalty is very important if you're... And this is what causes civil wars. And it's one of the things that makes this unique compared to other Paradox games, is the civil war system in this is a lot more interesting than just, hey, unrest is high, so some troops popped up and you got to go deal with them, or they might, you know, take over some stuff. In this game, civil war status is tracked based on the number of A, disloyal characters, and B, disloyal provinces. And when a certain amount of what's called, let me see, power base, right? When a certain amount of what's called power base in your empire is disloyal, it will start ticking towards a civil war, and when that happens, everything that's disloyal will rise up against you in a civil war and form like a brand new rebellious nation to fight you, which is a lot more interesting than just a stack of rebellious troops popping up somewhere. Cities will actually convert immediately to the rebellious side, and you'll fight an actual civil war against them to reconquer them and get them back under your thumb. So that's what it means when you're looking at province loyalty. And obviously it has other impacts. Probably as the province gets less loyal, you get less money from it, things like that. So that is what is being listed here. You can see there's no unrest right now, and because there's no unrest, this is the effect on province loyalty per turn, kind of a thing going on. This arrow indicates province loyalty is currently changing to go up, not down. And it's showing you which provinces are making it go up or down. Sorry, which territories are making it go up or down. Neapolis is actually going down by 0.06, so let's go take a look at why. I'm guessing it's going to have to do with the cultural problem there. So if we look at unrest, is 0.20. If we look at unrest here, it's because unhappy population, and that is, if we go deeper into it here, very unhappy because not italic culture group, and that's pretty big, and also not Hellenic religion, and governor is Hellenic, and so all those have penalties against them. And this is another one where not italic culture group. So if we compare, for the moment, a citizen in Rome and their happiness, they get a bonus for civilization value, but for some reason, we look down here, and Neapolis does not get a bonus for civilization. Oh, they do get a bonus for civilization value. The civilization here is lower than it is in Rome. So this is Hellenic, so it's 1042-ish, but then we're subtracting 30 from that. Am I reading that right? Plus avoid religion mandates. Anyway, you can see how not being the right culture is a problem, and so Neapolis itself needs to be converted. Luckily, one of the options that we have here is cultural assimilation. That can help things speed up. It's a governor policy, and it applies to each province. So the entire province of Campania would have that thing. Even though Neapolis is really the only territory where that's a problem, everybody else is, for the most part, the correct distribution of pops in the correct culture, or at least this is, so Sibelian is an italic culture, so it's still in our culture group, so that's fine. That keeps them happy. It says non-Roman culture, so they're still converting to Roman, but at least it's a similar culture to Rome, so it's not as big a penalty. But let's do that right now, before I forget. We're going to do cultural assimilation. There we go. So that's going to speed up that assimilation process once it actually gets started here in Neapolis. Yeah, so you can see that's a huge speed up. Before, we were just getting 0.8. Now we're getting 5.3. That's a huge speed increase in the speed of assimilation. Okay, I think we've talked enough about pops. Let's talk a little bit more. And I think we've covered basically everything. And there's a couple of buttons. Let's talk about political influence here. You get this, a little of this every month from the characters that you have in offices in your government. And you can use it for a number of things, but one of the big things that you can use it for is to permanently upgrade a province on the whole. And that's what these 4 buttons are. So install provincial procurators, increases the supply limit, the supply limit by a percentage, and reduces the movement cost and increases fort defense. So this is a military upgrade to the province. And this, again, because it's in the top section, will apply to every single territory in this area. So this is something you'd put on the border of your realm to increase the fort defense, and because you know if you're going to be fighting a war, your troops are going to be moving around there, so you'd rather have a higher supply limit and faster movement speed. Then you've got something like this, which increases the number of city building slots in each territory in the province, which is kind of nice. And again, local import route. The provinces can import and export resources. This is a way to get an additional import route for the provinces, because normally each province, I think, starts with one, and you need to upgrade them by getting things like this. And then finally, make religious endowments. This just increases happiness by anybody following the state religion. So if you're having happiness problems and unrest due to happiness, and you've managed to convert people, this is a button that will just make them all happier and therefore more productive. Okay. So I think that's the last piece of things that we want to look at here for now. We'll talk about food and income and all that stuff in a little bit. I didn't actually check and see if anybody's saying anything in the chat there. And I can't find the chat. There it is. Hello, Sapior. And a couple other guys watching. Hopefully this has been... it's actually been way too long, and I kind of want to start over. But let's just jump into it, shall we? I'm actually getting used to the new... So they move these around in the UI. Okay, that's why I got confused. The UI, improved UI mod moved everything around on me. Oh, Sapior, you've been hanging with me. I don't know how many people are on the YouTube thing. Am I making things very boring? My original goal with this was to like explain as I played. I haven't played at all. I failed miserably. But it just occurred to me that I'm kind of making sure I fully understand things as we go. And I feel like I've gone too deep. So maybe I'm going to pull back and do that. So hold on one second. I'm just going to restart and go more directly into the game. And try not to go so deep on things. So hold on. Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to another exciting episode of Games Explained. I am Bridger, and today we are talking about Imperator Rome. And I know that Imperator has been out for a while, but it was kind of subpar when it first came out, and I'm happy to report that it's doing better now. The 3 patches they've had have been pretty valuable. I will point out that I'm using a couple of mods here, and I'm going to post those right here real quick so you can pause it if you want to get a look at these. The 1.3 better UI, very good. Definitely get that. Better pause banner, also just very nice. And these other ones, improved buildings, improved sieges, and improved battles, you can check those out and see if you like those ideas. There's small tweaks to the game, and I'll explain if they have any major impact, but improved buildings make a couple of different differences to the buildings, and most importantly, changes the way that pop ratios work. These make a couple of different changes to the way that battles and sieges work, but we're not going to be focused too deeply on those. All the things that I explained to you during the game here are going to be relevant, even if the numbers are a little bit different. So I am going to go very briefly over the basics here, and I'm not going to dive too deep because I want to actually just get started playing the game, because I feel like that might be more interesting to explain while playing rather than explain everything without moving a dial. So, very quickly, this is the territory of Fragile. Next to it is the territory of Fundi. They are both part of the province of Latium, which is the large highlighted area. Anytime you highlight any individual territory in the game, it also highlights the province that it is a part of. These are the 2 most important elements in the game in terms of controlling your economy and your buildings and your and everything involved in that. So territories are broken down into 3 possible levels. Settlements, which can be seen here, are the smallest, lowest, most rural form of a territory. They have lower populations, and they are more likely to generate trade goods because they are more rural and they're more focused around generating some kind of raw resource. Cities, on the other hand, can be seen on the map as having actual buildings in them. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cities in this province without even clicking on them to see, oh yes, that's definitely a city because it's got the 3 little columns here. And cities are less likely to generate, it takes more population to generate the same number of resources from a city. Cities produce different types of resources as well. Cities will never produce food-based resources. They're always going to produce something like glass, or in this case, salt. This city produces iron. This city produces wine. And all of these things can, I think, be done outside of cities as well. But cities specifically are excluded from producing the more rural resources. Because if you ever upgrade a province that has a rural resource like wood, if we ever tried to upgrade this, it would, I believe, change the type of resource that is there. So let's see, grain, for example. If we hover over this, it says, okay, 1 of 5 options will happen. It can't make grain in a city because that requires a lot of land. So instead, if we found a city here, it will change the trade good from grain to papyrus cloth, earthenware, dyes, or glass, right? But not everyone does that. So we just saw here, wood will still be built in this. Even if we construct a city here, it still has many forests that you can use for wood, etc., etc. So that's the main difference between cities and settlements. Settlements have the lower population limit and, most importantly, lower building limits. Settlements only have 1 building that can be produced. Cities have a scaling number of buildings based on the population. So every 10 pops gets you another building slot, and capitals get an extra slot as well, and every city starts with 2. So the types of buildings that you can build, this is very different from this, and so they do different things. And we're going to talk about that when we go deeper into the economy. But we talked about provinces. There's one higher level that doesn't directly interact with you very often, but it sometimes interacts with you via missions. As we talked about provinces, and here's all the different provinces in this area, and there's also regions. So you can see that Italy has all these different provinces, but it has actually only a very few 3 regions: Magna Graecia, Italia, and Cisalpine Gaul. So regions are usually the only way you really interact with regions outside of missions and things like that is that each region gets a governor. So the governor basically oversees all of the provinces within that region. So you can see we have 2 governors, and that's why in the region map mode it's showing us our governors: the Italian governor and the Magna Graecia governor. So that is the sort of main look at the way that the map is organized. We're going to dive into that deeper later. Let's look at some of the other things we got on here. Resources. Treasury is income. Great. Political influence. This is something that's used when you want to make changes to your government, and in many cases, increasing infrastructure in your various territories. Manpower. Like most of the other Paradox games, manpower is increased every year, or every month rather, and you spend it when you build new units, military units. And then we've got military experience. Military experience is an odd duck. It's not something that you've seen before. It increases by 0.3 every month no matter what. But it can also go up if your average military experience for your armies, specifically it's called average cohort experience because each individual army unit, they were called regiments in EU4, each individual army unit of 1,000 guys is a cohort, and if this guy is more experienced, if your army is more experienced on average, it'll make this go up faster. If you are relying more on mercenaries, it makes your military experience go up slower. War exhaustion actually makes your military experience go up faster, because if you've got a lot of war exhaustion, it means you're fighting a lot, which means that you're getting more experience. And this is something you spend directly in the military traditions. So for every 100 military experience you've got, you can buy one of these traditions, and they come in these various trees. So this tree, and this tree, it's not really a tree actually, it's really a column. So if you want to go down sort of the heavy infantry line, you can do that, and then you can get this, and then you can get this, etc., etc. You do not have to go straight down. You can do 1 here, then 2 in the middle, and then 1 here, and then go back and get this one, and then go back and get these 3. However you want to do it, they just have to be one after the other from top to bottom. So that's what military experience is used for, and that's how you get it. Then we've got stability, which is handled a little bit differently than in other games as well. instead of being simply a -3 and +3, it's all the way, it's 0 to 100. And 50 is straight smack dab in the middle. And this has an effect on essentially a lot of different things, but it always tries to trend back to 50. So if it's above 50, it'll go down. If it's below 50, it'll go up, generally speaking. And the higher it is, the lower your unrest, the higher the threshold for civil wars to begin, essentially. So civil wars are less likely to start with higher stability and more likely to start with lower stability. Things like that. What affects it? Events and decisions often have an effect on stability. Oh, this thing would be great, but it's going to cause some upheaval in the meantime, and you'll have to wait for your stability to recover afterwards. Or I'm going to spend a little money, grease a few palms, and help increase the stability because of this guy offering me a favor or what have you. So keep an eye on stability. We'll come back to it. Tyranny is a new thing. Tyranny, if it gets too high, it's very bad because it lowers the happiness of your main culture, your primary culture, which most of your nation will almost always be made of your primary culture. Lowered happiness directly contributes to less productivity. Tyranny is gained when you do things the Senate isn't 100% backing you on. So this replaces legitimacy. In a monarchy, this would be legitimacy. In a republic, this is called tyranny, and it's bad. So anytime you want to establish a new law or do certain diplomatic relations with other countries, like declaring war, the Senate will be either for or against that proposal out of its 100 senators. If at least 60 are in favor of it, you can do it, and it's no problem. If between 50 and 59 are in favor of it, actually, between 41, I think, and 50, something like that, you can do it, but it's going to give you some tyranny. And if tyranny gets too high, it's very bad, because you can see it lowers the loyalty of your generals, admirals, and governors. And if that gets too low, that's what starts civil wars. So too much tyranny, gonna cause a civil war. In the meantime, tyranny does have some bonuses. You know, it's good to be the king, so to speak. You can see all the things in green numbers that are actually good things for you. But generally speaking, too much tyranny is bad. We've also got just a population number here and average happiness of our culture group, cultural unity, please let 1 month pass to upgrade the values. Okay, so yeah, those are there. You can see available mercenaries and other things up here. So those are all the general things that you're going to see. And we're just going to start playing the game now and explain as we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is check these things at the top. So we've got trade routes, so that makes it a good time to explain trade. So in this game, let's talk about trade goods. Here's a trade good map mode, and my god, it doesn't do that. There we go. Now we can see everything. So you can see there's a lot of different trade goods in the game. So wood is always colored green, etc. If I click on wood here, it highlights every wood province in the game. If we click on grain, you can see every grain province in the game. But the way that trade goods interact can be very complicated. It's almost as complicated as trade in EU4, to be honest. And here's the way it works. In any given province, let's take a look at this one here. This one is producing cloth, right? And this province is producing 1 cloth, because there's no numbers here. If I click on this right here, you can see this province is actually not producing just 1 grain, but 2. So every province produces a base of 1 of the type of thing that it's producing. It may produce more than 1 under certain circumstances. The main circumstance is if you have enough slaves to meet a certain threshold. So in this case, let's take a look at this province where we're producing 1 grain. Well, the base number is every 15 pops, slave population will give us an additional grain that we can use to either export or send to a different province within our own empire. So right now it's producing 1 grain, and if we only have 3 slaves, if we had 12 more slaves, this would pop up and go to 2 grain coming from this province. And we can see that here. Oh, wait a minute. This province only has 10 slaves, so why does it have 2 grain? Well, it has a farming settlement which lowers the number of slaves needed for a local surplus by 7. So the number of slaves needed for a surplus is by default 15 in a settlement, and I believe it's 20 in a city. But buildings and other effects can adjust that. So this province would normally only be making 1 grain, but because it has this farming settlement, it lowered the threshold. So now instead of every 15 slaves, it's every 8. So once this gets to 16, this will be producing 3 grain instead. So that's how the trade goods are produced. And just for completionist's sake, in a city, there are ways to increase the, or to do the same thing, but a farming settlement kind of reducing it by 7 is huge. I think in a city there's a building that reduces it by 1 per. So if you have 2 of that building, then it goes from every 20 slaves to every 18 slaves produce an additional thing of that city. But cities also have a much higher population limit, so you can have many more slaves in them, if that makes sense. Okay, so now that we know how these trade goods are produced, what do they do? Okay, so the trade goods, once they're produced, go to the province level. Down here, this is the territory level, so we're looking at the individual territory of Frigeli or Fundi. That's down here. All these statistics down here have to do with that. But up here, this is all the stuff that has to do with the province. And we can make that go away, but this is all province stuff. So province level is where all the different trade goods that are produced in this province combine, and they're listed up here. We have 1 cloth. We have 2 wine, 1 salt, 1 wood, 2 iron, 1 horse, and 3 grain. Okay. We got the 3 grain from here getting 1 and here getting 2. Added together makes 3. Now, what does all this do? Well, if you hover over a grain, it's going to tell you just having 1 grain in your province gives you a local monthly food modifier of plus 10%. Each surplus in the province gives you an extra flat 5 food. So, you would imagine, if we hover over this, we do indeed see that because we have 2 surplus grain, we get 10 bonus food and the original 10% bonus to our local monthly food modifier. And we can see that if we hover over this, we can see actually food production in each individual province is where you see that. So you can see here that we're getting monthly food income from here is 1.9 because of the terrain type, the grain percent bonus, the warm climate bonus, but then you have to feed the population, so it's minus 1.4 and minus 0.3 for the slaves. And then up here is where you can see the extra, I'm sorry, in the capital is where the, or is it here? Local monthly food 0.5. Should be an extra 10 here. Oh, hang on. Once I had this problem before. This tooltip's going to get updated once we let the timer tick by. So why don't we do that? We'll let the timer tick by, and we'll just, do whatever it needs to be. Let's just let the first month tick by. And then we'll look at these things again. Everything will be updated a little bit better. So every month in general is when something important happens. It does check per day for certain things like moving of units and battles and things like that, but on the month tick over is when you typically see more updated stuff. Okay, maybe it's in the capital specifically then. Let's go to Roma, look at their food. There it is. Okay, so the surplus that comes from here, 3 additional grain giving the following benefits, plus 15, that goes directly to the income in the capital. So you can see surplus of grain 15. So it doesn't show up here. This is the province food, but the province food income is showing me the total from all of the individual provinces. So even though this is the province with the grain surplus, it's sent to the capital of the province. Let's see another example. Capua, I believe there's also a grain in Capua, in this province. There's actually another one somewhere over here as well, I believe. Maybe not. It's outside of our purview. But anyway, so that's how the food shows up. But we're using grain as an example. So not only do we get the bonus from having each individual grain that goes straight into the capitals of that province, if the capital province of our nation has a surplus of any amount, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, then it gets another bonus. So you can see here that because the capital province in the nation has this grain bonus, it's a 10% bonus to national manpower. Let's look over at Capua. Actually, that doesn't have any bonuses here, so that's going to be hard to show you an example of later. But if Capua had a bonus, just had 2 or 3 grain here, the only difference would be it would get the plus 5 or 10 or 15 food into the capital's stores here. But because our capital province, you want to have 2 of everything in your capital to get all of the relevant bonuses. You don't need more than 2. More than 2 just gives you those flat bonuses. So here's an example. Iron allows the building of heavy infantry units. Capua, sorry, I always say Capua, but this is the Campania province, doesn't have iron. Therefore, you can't build heavy infantry units. But because Italia, the Latium province does have a surplus of at least 1 iron, all heavy infantry have a higher discipline. In addition, each surplus benefits this specific province by an extra 5% manpower. So if Campania was the one that had the 2 iron in it with 1 base plus 1 surplus, the only effect that would have on Campania is allows heavy infantry units and local manpower. The capital province, which means the capital city of the entire nation, gets you that additional bonus. So you basically want your capital province to have 2 of everything, and then add additional ones in there if you need extra food, or if you need extra manpower, or what have you. The other provinces, you only care about having the bonuses for those individual bonuses, like the extra food. Or the extra manpower. It won't give you the extra discipline in the case of the iron. So, all that having been said, the capital has unused import routes. Each province has, by default, 1 trade import route that you can get. And we've got another one because of a port building in this province, I believe. Ports in province. Huh. Not actually sure where the ports in province modifier comes from, because I don't think this has it, does it? Oh, okay, so just having a port in the province, meaning any city on a coast, I would guess. Or no. Oh, okay, it's not cities and coasts. This is actually distinctly a port, and it's not a building that you can build. It's a piece of the map. So ports are built in. This territory just doesn't have a port. This one does. Just period. I guess you can't build new ports. Question about governors from Dragon. Does each different player have their own governor per region? Yes, correct. So I have a governor for the Magna Graecia region that's looking over my territories in Magna Graecia, even though I don't control all this Samnite territory. The Samnites have their own governor for this region. Now that probably means they only have 1 governor, because they only exist inside that region. My territory happens to span 2 regions. And that's why I would have 2 governors. All right. So, hopping back over here. So, okay. So that's trade goods, and the capital gets a bonus trade good, trading permits. But that is part of your laws, if I remember correctly. Government, laws, not laws. Economic laws. Here it is. Capital import routes +2. Trading permits. I could also get bonus taxation for importing things or bonus taxation for exporting things, but I would lose that free 2 imports from my capital. Okay, so what do we want to import? Well, anything we can. If we have an import route, you want to use it because A, it makes you money, and B, it gives you more of that particular type of resource. Because every trade route you make gives you money, whether you're exporting or importing. It's good for you. Trade is good. But here's the problem. I can try to get some more salt into Latium. And it's telling me if I do, then I could get a surplus in the capital, which lowers my army maintenance costs. And it would also give me higher provincial food capacity for each surplus of salt. That's pretty good. And it looks like there's a number of places from which I could get salt. These are all the different places that have a surplus of salt, but they have a capital bonus. They don't want to give it up. Venetia probably has 3 salt. They're willing to get rid of 1, so they still have 2, which means they keep their capital surplus. I bet you if we look at that, let's take a quick look at Venetia here. Where's their salt coming from? That's fish. There's some salt. Oh, there it is, yeah. So actually they have, yes, they have 2 extra in their capital. That's why they're willing to trade it with me. Because they get money for exporting it, and then we'll get the benefit of having some money for importing it, and we'll also get the benefit of a lower army maintenance cost. So one of my trade routes is definitely going to be used for that. Boom. So now, oops, click a button and do it right. There we go. Venetia. So we're now getting all the benefits of having a surplus of salt in our capital, extra food capacity, lower army maintenance cost, and we already had the population cap increase from the base of just having any salt in our capital. Now we have 1 more slot, and we can see there's actually no other things that anybody is willing to trade with us except wine. And that could come from Histria. So wine we already have a surplus of. If we import more wine, then all that will do is make our local freeman happiness go up by 1%, which does increase their productivity by 1%, so that's good. But I'm not sure if it's worth spending 15 gold right now. I think we might just wait a few months and see if we can't get a better deal. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So, yeah, we're going to hold off on adding the other trade route. And now we just looked at some trade routes that are external to internal. Those are the best. It's best when you can get trade goods from other countries and ship them into you. But let's say that that Rome has been booming and there's a ton of people in the cities and the cities around Rome. Fantastic. But now they can't feed themselves. We're not making enough food. Like, that's the situation, it was almost a situation right now, but it's not anymore. We could import grain from other nations, but maybe they don't have any grain to import. Maybe it's all been taken up by other people. You can also import grain from other provinces you control. So if Campania had an extra grain, I could send that to Rome as well and get the benefit of the extra food. So if Rome, for example, let's see, which is it that produces the iron here? It's Ostia, and I think this one too. No, where's the iron come from? Ostia and Curies. If I try to focus on producing a bunch more iron from these areas, I could export it to my own areas further away from the capital in order to build heavy infantry in those other areas. So let's take a quick look at trade goods map mode. So it looks like there's iron in most places, but there's no iron over here. If I build the Roman Empire all the way out to over here, I'll have to ship iron in or simply be unable to construct new heavy infantry in the area. So that's another thing that you'll use trade routes for. And you can expand trade routes through things like technology, but also there are 4 buttons here that will let you increase various factors of a province. These, again, they're in the province area. They are the province buttons. They will let you increase all the things about a province. In this case, 1 extra trade route until the end of the game. But it takes 2 years to make that, and in the process, the areas got reduced by 1% productivity or something like that. Anyway, now we're done with that trade route in the capital thing. Let's look at the commander. That's going to bring us to talking about characters. This game is not quite as character heavy as Crusader Kings, so we don't have to go too deep into it. When we're looking for a new commander for our military, anytime you click a button to change a character for an office, whether it's an admiral, a general, a governor, or a position in the government, Like if we go here and we look at offices and I want to change the censor to be somebody else, it's going to list everything with this character with the highest stats at the top. So this guy's got a 10, 9, 7, 7, 7, blah, 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 blah. So it's helping you do the math and saying, okay, you want probably one of these top 5 characters because they're just straight out better at this job than the characters below it. Because all the characters have stats: martial, finesse, charisma, and zeal. Those are their primary stats. Those directly affect their ability to provide you bonuses when they are doing specific jobs. So, for example, the censor is increasing your influence with the Senate, making it easier for you to pass laws and do things without tyranny, I believe. And so if we had a crappy censor, we wouldn't get as big a boost to our senatorial influence. In this case, actually, if we had a better censor, we'd be able to do that better. This guy is reducing our aggressive expansion. This guy is increasing the discipline of our armies. This guy is increasing our tax income. But he's only doing it at a 2 rating instead of a 6 rating. Well, why is that? There's an interesting thing in what they did with this game. So, right, let's take a look at this guy, for example. He's actually kind of a terrible... Let's look at a better example. Here we go. The Tribunus Militum, which is the office that oversees the quality of the Republic's military by managing their training, logistics, and discipline, right? So right now, Gaius Genius Publius is in charge. And he actually has a 12 martial rating. That is fantastic. He would be a great person for this job. But, as in many cases, people are not great at the job the first time they get it. This represents his potential. His actual performance is you take this and you modify it by this percentage. So he's not a 12, he's a 12 at 50% effectiveness right now, which means he's a 6. So if we go back there and pull that back up, you can see, yes, he's operating at a 6 of 12 because he has a 53% statesmanship rating. Statesmanship starts for characters at basically 0, and it goes up over time the longer they are in a given office. And the more important offices, the higher the maximum it can go. So basically, it's their experience working in bureaucratic government, right? The more experienced someone is, the better they're going to be able to exploit their own potential. And the reason they put this system in was to avoid situations where, okay, my best, military guy is an 8, so I'm going to put him in charge of this. And then, oh, hey, I just got a new character who's now a 9. I'm just going to fire the other guy and put this guy in. And, oh, my guy who was a 9 died. I'm just going to put my 10, my 8 in, or this or that, right? Instead of just looking at the highest number and just using it, that's a brain-dead, easy thing to do. Now you have to consider, do I want to fire the guy who, even though he's not got the best potential compared to other people that are available right now, he's got a lot of experience at this job. And so, as a result, they might be somebody to leave where they are. So that is essentially how you choose these various offices. That brings us back to choosing a commander. So I think that doesn't apply to military people, by the way. Oh, this guy's wounded. That's not good. But he's a tactician, which gives him a couple of bonuses. All characters have the potential to have some traits, and when you're selecting a new one, it'll show you any relevant traits, military traits for military leader, for example. And then there are other factors. This guy has no significant prominence within a particular family. He does have a certain amount of popularity, which affects various things. Loyalty is very important. I do not want to put a low loyalty person in charge of my army. Very bad. 80 is a good number. It's out of 100. And corruption represents how much this guy's going to cost you. So wages are normally a certain amount of money for a given job, but the corruption increases the cost that the person costs you. You have to pay extra money to them out of the profits because they're embezzling various things. But we're going to pick Lucius Papyrus Cursor. And the other thing to consider when you're choosing a job like this is family. All of these are minor characters, I believe. Anything with a splash of color like this, that's from one of the major families. In this case, you can see it's a member of the Claudii family. And that's only important if your families are discontent. But right now, if there was a major family that had a character up here that had like an 8, I would honestly pick that character because you got to keep those families happy. But the best character from any of the great families can provide for military is this guy, and he's a crappy 5? No way. We're going to take one of the minor characters in Rome, make him our general. Boom. Got it. And he's actually already got some statesmanship, but it's going away because he's not in charge of a statesman job. Generals don't have to worry about statesmanship. Their ability in combat is strictly based on their martial number. Okay, so we can see here he's got his age, other stats that are important. We already talked about the loyalty and the fact that it's going up because he's more loyal to us because we made him the commander of an army. He appreciates that. He says, that gives me some status. So I'm happy to have the status. He's also the same faction as the co-ruler. But he's got his own power base, and that works against loyalty. The bigger a character's power base, the less likely they are to be loyal because they don't have to be anymore. They could be on their own terms, right? So loyalty has a lot of different things that can go into it. We'll get more into that later. So it says lack of a commander. We could give somebody... Now, I don't really care about this stupid navy right now. I'm not going to be fighting naval battles much. So I'm going to give this to the family just to make them potentially happier. And, because the 3 families are the most important things. These minor characters almost never matter. They can't really rebel on their own usually. It's possible, but unlikely, especially at this early point in the game. So I'm going to make the family happy. I'm going to put a crappy guy in charge of the Navy, but it's like nepotism. Just like, okay, the family's going to like me a little more. Okay, so now we got to see what else we've got here. Inventions. We can now buy up some inventions. Technology in this is a kind of weird thing. They call them inventions. I think of more like policies, but the way that this works is all these ones that you see here are available at the very beginning of the game. They require 0th level of, in this case, religious technology or civic or oratory technology. These are all the ones that you start the game with. However, as you go up, our current level is 0 across the board. As our technology level goes to 1 and 2 and 3, you'll unlock new inventions. Every invention costs you money to actually put into practice, let's say. So learning on the job increases starting experience of our new cohorts. Well, I'm going to raise some armies soon, so that seems like a good one to have. Let's buy that. The thing that's weird is I don't find a place you can go. Oh, maybe this is... No, that's recruit characters. That's not useful. This is if you want to replace your researcher for that thing. There's no way to look at the inventions that you put into practice. Like the thing I just did, it's gone. Poof, off into the ether. So whatever. We don't care about soldiers. Supply limits is pretty useful because it means you can have bigger armies that don't have a problem moving through your own territory. So we're going to get that too. Standardized measures. We're importing that one thing from Venetia and one other thing. This will increase the money we get from that. I think the national tax is probably better. Let's do that. And now we don't have enough money to do any more. So we're done with that. We don't have any money to do that. So now let's take a look. We have some free idea slots in our republic here. So if we look at our nation overview, we can see a lot of things. We can see our country's civilization maximum. This is going to be increased by things like technology for the most part. And all of our territories are slowly going to be moving up towards this number. When they get here, they stop. And remember, civilization is that category in here that determines a number of factors, but generally speaking, higher civilization equals more population, higher supply limit, less barbarian growth, higher migration attraction, and higher happiness for everybody except tribesmen. So more civilization, very good. It's more productivity, more everything. So this is the cap for our nation. This is the number of territories, number of pops, no aggressive expansion. We have the Roman heritage, which means our navies aren't very good, but we recover manpower like nobody's business, and we can integrate other powers more easily, which is like integrating vassals from EU4. I think the changes might be worth checking it out again, EM Ridley. That's why I'm doing this particular one here. So take a look and let me know. There were some significant changes. For example, you don't have mana up here anymore like the EU4 Monarch power. They got rid of that whole system. They've replaced it with some other sliding scales and stuff. So what you can see here is all of the provinces in which we have any territory, and it's nice that it hovers over them. So we have some territory in Aeternum, and we have some territory in Etruria, and we have some territory in Latium, and some over here, and some over here. We don't control every piece of all of those provinces. We can control some of them. You can also see power base of loyal versus disloyal civil war situations. So the families have different amounts. This lets you break it down. Hey, the Cornelli family's power base is 73. Then the minor characters have this power base, and the power base of the Fabii family is this, and the Claudii family is that. And part of the playing the game as a republic is making sure that these families are always in balance. If one family gets too far out of balance, if their power base is high enough but they're upset because they're not getting enough jobs, that's when they might start a civil war. Oh. So this will be a quick area to look at your power base situation. But the main reason we came here is you've got 3 idea slots that you can change around. And I don't know if there's there's a political power cost to putting these into effect. We have 87, so we can put in 60 points to put these 3 into practice. Now, you can see, because we are an aristocratic republic, it has a preference for military, and oratory ideas. If we match the ideas to these slots, we'll get bonus monthly loyalty and national freeman happiness. We don't have to match these, but we're probably going to be doing some conquering stuff soon, so I'm going to at least match these military ideas. Morale of armies plus 10%, flat out great. I'm with you. And then, what do we got for things if we didn't want to match? Civic ideas, build time and cost. That's actually very good if we wanted to save up a bunch of money and then implement this idea for a while and just go on a building spree. Commerce income. That could be good if we're desperately short of money or we're just trying to expand a lot of money. Slave output can also be good for income, a bunch of money. So we could change these ideas in the future to just be like, money, please. So that's one place we can consider adjusting our government to focus on something temporarily. Oratory, that lowers corruption amongst characters, saving us some money. Increases loyalty, that's good. Increases opinion maximum. And so that would be, I believe, exterior opinion. So other nations, not specific characters. And then this is country civilization level can go up by another whole 5%. And increases the civilization change by 0.02. That's pretty good. Loyalty of subject states can go up. That could be useful if you're trying to get them to 190 in order to integrate them. Monthly ruler popularity gain. So these are all good, but I think we're going to actually try to match the ideas for now. We'll adjust it later. I like the higher reinforcement speed and morale recovery. And then we'll look at an oratory idea here. I don't think we need to worry about loyalty being this small. Let's get the corruption down. There we go. So now that we've matched those ideas, we get all the bonuses from the ideas, and we get this little special bonus because we've got the matching ideas with our government type. And finally, we can pick an omen, and then we'll get started here. So an omen is one of these religious things which is different for all the different... oh, that's interesting. Which is different for all the different sort of heritages. Hellenic get these omens. I don't know if there's some special Roman ones versus Greek ones, but these are the omens we have available to us. And they're basically blessings to the gods that encourage our populace to look in a particular beneficial direction. So... we're about to go on the war path, which means we might want some discipline. However, our treasury balance is actually kind of low. So I think we want to do the Blessing of Pluto and get some bonus tax. Okay. So, now that we've done all the baseline stuff, let's take a quick look at our economy here. So wages of the various characters, fort maintenance. Forts do cost maintenance, okay. And if your forts are more maintained, their garrison size and fort defense is increased. And if they're poorly maintained, I didn't even notice that was a slider last time. Okay, that's cool. Armies could be maintained at a higher rate of pay to get even more morale. That's kind of cool. Or same thing as like instead of this being a slider in EU4, this is the 3-button option. So now we're going to take a look at one of the things that was recently added in the 1.3 patch, missions, which is similar to the missions in EU4. So the first mission available, and a bunch of these are custom tailored. They added missions for Rome and the Carthage and the Greek nations and the Punic nations. I don't know if they've added missions for all of the tribes and stuff yet, but this is the one for us. The matter of Magna Graecia, this area down here. Our fortunes await in foreign lands. The Magna Graecia region has been considered part of our borders, yet much of it remains beyond our control. Make sure that it's brought under our influence one way or another. So we start the mission, and we're consulting the Senate. It's going to take a year, and we're going to see a bunch of events pop up, which sort of allow us to choose how we're going to deal with this problem. While we're waiting for that to happen, I'm going to let time start ticking, and we're going to take a little bit better look with our... we need a diplomatic map mode here. There. So, in green is us, in yellow is somebody we're trading with, and in light blue is our vassals, our client states. There's 2 different levels of vassalage in this game. Client state / satrapy is one of them. Excuse me. And these guys are our client states, or other nations might call them satraps. So client states are essentially vassals from EU4. They maintain all of your diplomatic status. So if you go to war, they join you in the war. If you make peace, they make peace. And anybody that attacks them is an attack against you. So you maintain the same war status with them. But they don't pay you money. They pay you manpower. So in this case, we get... Or is that slaves? It might be slaves, actually. But they pay you in essentially that. I don't think it's slaves, because 5 pops per month would make no sense. So they're probably paying in manpower, 5 manpower per month. And then in return, they're a little bit unhappier. They can't do their own diplomacy, but they get a lower army maintenance. And we can integrate them in the future, just like vassals could be integrated in EU4. So that's satraps / client states. However, there's another type called a tributary, which is a weaker form. A tributary is one that pays you tribute for protection, but doesn't join all your wars. It's like a guarantee. We'll guarantee you protection from other outside states, and you pay us a little money. That's all it is. It's a protection racket, right? That's tributary. So, what's important to know is we have several nations that are our client states at the beginning, and I'm going to want to take them and get them integrated into Rome ASAP. But I can't do that until they have at least a positive opinion of 190 to me. So I'm going to start by attempting to... relation, there it is. Improve their opinion of mine. There we go. Right now they have this particular nation has a 40 opinion of me, because we have a different culture as a penalty, and Rome has a bellicose stance, which they aren't a real fan of. We can change our diplomatic stance in the future to make this easier. But right now, we're just going to start these guys. It costs us a little bit of political power to do this. There we go. Established an embassy, so now it's going to increase them liking us every month. Now, we did have a thing pop up here. A mission task can be completed. Consult the Senate. Okay, so I started that. It'll be completed in a year. And we'll see different things pop up. Let's check out the capital and see if something has changed in terms of what we can import. Nope, we still can't import anything, so we're going to leave that last slot empty. So the matter of Magna Graecia. The region of Magna Graecia has remained a valuable source of trade and commerce for our nation for many long years. Many amongst the Senate insist that such a bountiful land would serve much better purpose if fully integrated under the Roman banner. Of course, as with all matters of the state, many are in opposition, claiming that a healthy relationship with our neighbors is far more important than a wanton land grab. The leaders of each side have presented their arguments and asked for an arbitration as to which method would be most appropriate in our dealings with the various states and resident in Magna Graecia. I think they would prosper under our rule. It looks like that is going to upset, it's shift more warlike, and it's going to upset our researcher. He's going to lose some loyalty. He's at 70, though. Until they get to about 30, nothing bad really happens. But got to keep an eye on it. So either way, though, we're going to get somebody. The Praetor is going to be upset if we go for peaceful. So let's go with warlike and see what happens. And we've got 10 political influence again, so I'm going to select our other neighbor here and also get them to improve their opinion of us. The last one we need to do is this one here. Once we get those going, we can eventually then integrate them. And we talked a little bit about stances. Rome's diplomatic stance is bellicose, so it increases the ability to claim, to fabricate claims on other nations, and it kind of pisses everybody off. The other stances we could have is domineering stance, which will allow us to integrate these other factions more easily, and it increases their loyalty to us and their opinion of us. Mercantile stance increases our income and lowers the cost to create new trade routes, and other mercantile nations like us a lot more. The appeasing stance is aggressive expansion decays faster, and we can improve relations more cheaply. And allies like us more in an appeasing stance. And a neutral stance, just diplomatic relations, the number of diplomatic relations we can have is increased. Okay, sounding out the opposition. Debate has raged for many years over the rocky relationship with the nation-states resident in Magna Graecia. Cronton, a nation many in Rome call a friend, stands well placed to provide us with assistance in our endeavors in Magna Graecia. That's this guy down here, I believe. Yeah, it's odd that that's a C in here and it's a K in here. They must have gotten it wrong in one of those. Yeah, there is no Cronton with a C. Oh, Croton. Sorry. Oh, okay. The nation is Croton with a C, and the territory is Croton with a K. Go figure. Oh, get rid of that. There we go. Now we can see it. Okay, so anyway. Many of our more warlike advisors, however, see intent on burning all bridges and laying waste to the Crotine lands in an effort to further advance our cause. You know, if they've been our friends before, we can maintain a benevolent image. And Croton gets a 50 opinion of Rome. There you go. Look at that. They like us. They really like us. We could eventually, if we get down there, try to convince them to be our tributary or our client state. So the other thing that this deals with is there are different powers on the world stage. There's things like city-states, local powers, major powers, and I don't remember, there's another level in there somewhere. But each step has certain things that affect how it, have different ways that it affects diplomacy. We are a local power. We can join defensive leagues with other local powers, and we can form alliances with other local powers. I think we can even join defensive leagues with smaller nations than us. We can't join, and alliances are only within same level, if I'm remembering correctly. We can make an alliance with another local power. We can't make an alliance with a city-state. I think that's too small, if I'm not mistaken. You know what? Let me pull up the wiki real quick and have that in the background. Okay, now I've got it, because I don't think this has changed much. So while this is still ticking by here, let's talk about that. City-states have a territory of 1. Anything more than a city-state is a local power. That's what I'm thinking of. Okay, so here's an example. City-state. They can join defensive leagues and have alliances. In addition, they get bonuses to fort defense and national commerce income. They get little bonuses just for being a single territory power. They're compact. It gives them some advantages. A local power is the next step up. They can still join defensive leagues and have alliances, and they can get these kind of bonuses. They can integrate others faster. They get more diplomatic relations, diplomatic range. However, a regional power, which I want to say Carthage is a regional power. Nope, that's a major power. Here's a regional power, Etruria. Etruria is a regional power, and they are allowed to guarantee other countries. This gives them new special rules. They cannot have defensive leagues anymore, and they can threaten war in order to gain territory without a war, and they can still have alliances, and they get these other bonuses you can see here. But a major power can still have alliances. I thought that major powers couldn't have alliances. I thought that was their thing. They could only have lower level powers with them. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a step above major power. That's what I'm thinking of. So here's the next step up that we're looking at now. A major power gets all these bonuses, can still guarantee other countries, can still threaten war, and they can also support rebels in other countries. They're big enough to be able to do that. However, more likely to have civil wars at this level. And more likely for rebellions, and loyalty is lower. The bigger the nation, the harder it is to hold together. Now let's see if we can find a great power. I think the Seleucid Empire is a great power. Nope, they're still only a major power. Scandal? I'm actually not sure what the threshold of a great power is then. Great powers have to have 500 or more provinces for a great power. That's crazy. So how many provinces does this guy have? Does it tell me here on the screen? Yes, 427. Not quite. Oh, because a lot of this is empty space. That's why. It looks big, but it's not. And this is 436. So there's no great powers yet on the board. But the thing about great powers is once you become a great power, you cannot have any alliances. So you can't just match yourself up with a bunch of other mediocre powers and just dominate the world. It's everybody against you at that point, which is kind of a cool way to balance things. Anyway, Scandal. Let me pull open the dashboard again and away from the wiki so I can see what you guys are saying. There we go. So, Scandal is unfortunately part of the average day in a Roman Senate. Ordinarily, we'd simply ignore such petty squabbles. However, on this occasion, the esteemed Lucius Cornelius Scipio was found in flagrante delicto with his lover, Claudia Prima, by his spouse, Fabia Tetria. Fabia Tetria, the spouse, is overcome with despair and has appealed to the Senate to have Lucius Cornelius Scipio stripped of his office as a punishment for his brazenly public vice. So, one of the things that it does here is it helps by putting the various characters around here so you can see what they are. So here's the wife, and in this game, unless you check a special box, you can kind of ignore the female characters. They can't ever be members of offices, etc., to be historically accurate. But there is a box you can check that just says to hell with that, and it makes them all random. But in this case, what we're worried about here is Lucius Cornelius Scipio. He is a member of the Cornelli family, and he's a praefectus militaris. He's one of those main offices that we were looking there. This guy. So if we were to replace him, who could replace him here? We could replace him with worse people, right? That are part of the families. We could replace him with a Fabian guy. We could not replace him with another member of the Cornelli family, because there's no Cornelli families available. If we look at the characters and we show by families, all the Cornellis must already have jobs. This guy is the head of the family. This guy is a researcher, governor, praefectus. Yeah, all the men that are old enough to have jobs already do. So if we fire him from a job, we can't replace him. Lucky for us, the Cornelli family currently has 4 jobs in the government, but they'll be content to only have 3. So we can fire him without a significant concern. He'll be upset personally. The family won't get super mad at us and become disloyal. So we can say, yeah, we shouldn't tolerate public infidelity. And this guy loses 10 prominence and he loses his position, which is kind of A-okay with me, because he's not a very good, he's only a 3 out of 10 at his effectiveness. So he's gone. Let's replace him with somebody better. Like, this guy here, he's 37 years old. He's not got a lot of statesmanship, you can see, but he's only 37, so he'll have a lot of time to learn on the job and get better at it, right? So he's going to be going up by 0.4 statesmanship each month, so he's going to get better at this job pretty quickly, is what it comes down to. Right now, he's a 3. He has the potential to get all the way up to a 9. Perfect. We have enough money to afford a new invention. Tribal Reserve. I don't really care about tribesmen. We don't have that many of them. I'm trying not to have too many of them. This is pretty good. Improve opinion maximum. This allows us to improve the opinion of our subjects and make it easier to integrate them later. So yes, I'll take that. The Senate speaks. Rhetoric and debate have raged for a full year. The Senate of Rome has reached a final stance on the matter of Magna Graecia. Drawing a sharp breath, the herald recites, "The Senate demands protection for the weak of Magna Graecia." So, I get small olive branch for 20 years. Diplomatic reputation +2. Improve opinion maximum +5. And war score cost is a little higher. Now, here's what I need to find out. What the heck is that? Diplomatic reputation. That must be somewhere on these screens, and it must have an impact. That's the number of relations you can have. Diplomatic reputation. It must be just a modifier like it is in EU4. I just thought I'd be able to find it somewhere in here. Diplomacy. Cohort ships. Roman heritage. View characters. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't show diplomatic reputation anywhere on here, but, you know, having more of it has got to be good. It probably encourages, like, if we're trying to get an alliance with somebody, I'm guessing, diplomatic reputation there, +2, right? So even though we can't see it on any screen, we now know we've got the +2 diplomatic reputation. Now, what do we get from the new missions available? So we finished this one. Now we can do one of these other ones. Into Magna Graecia. Task is unfulfilled. Making gains. If we own all of those. Control Campania. So, oh, is one of the things that happened that we got some claims? Yes, we gained claims on all of these areas as part of that first mission. So we can now declare war on the Samnites and start taking over some territory. Before we do that, I might consider changing around some of my internal stuff here. So the Tiber has 2 training camps, which means that if I recruit troops here, they'll recruit faster and with more starting experience. That's pretty good. And this city too. Looks like Rome also has that. So I can recruit troops in these 3 areas, and I'll be able to recruit horses and heavy infantry because of those resources, and they'll all be recruited with a higher starting experience. So let's start doing that. I'm going to use the macro builder. Recruits. Now, we've got 4 archers, 4 heavy infantry, and 4 light cavalry. I'm going to get some velites. Maybe. It's... This combat, I kind of understand it. It's the kind of thing that drives me crazy because it's so minutiae-ic. And it's also rock, paper, scissors. So it's like the way to properly exploit this combat system, right? It's to look at what your other person's army has and redesign your entire military to counter them. And then if they change their whole military, redesign your entire military again. I shouldn't have to do all that. It should just be get a balanced mix of forces. So that's all I'm going to do, okay? I'm going to get a few more of each. We're going to get more Principes. And we're going to get more Auxilia. And we're going to get some more of these guys. And I'm also going to get 1 supply train, because there is one other piece to this, and that is each army carries around a certain amount of food. Supply trains increase the amount of food capacity, so when they're out on campaign and not in a home area, then they can get food and they won't suffer attrition. So now we're just going to let some time pass as those units build. Ah, we have new things we can import. So, let's take a look at our food situation here. Okay, this is a good overview. So all of our provinces have positive food income. Even our capital, and our capital has our army sitting there like eating the food on a daily basis. We can actually see that. If we go here, you can see that it has a total of 4.82 food per month, and that takes into account the fact that our army is eating 2.2 every month. So wherever your army is sitting, it's actually eating the food there. So if I moved it over here, then it's going to eat 2.2 of the food from Campania. More once these other cohorts are built. So our food situation is fine. We don't really have to worry about our food situation. So if we import new resources, it doesn't have to be food related. But livestock, if we had a surplus of livestock in the capital, we'd get pop promotion speed going up, and we'd get monthly food increased. Might be good to have livestock eventually. I think I'm going to get livestock right now, just so we can get it from whoever this is. Way over here. Let's see the other options real quick. Leather. Local slave output is 10%. Oh, we missed the chance on livestock. I should have potentially grabbed it. Somebody else grabbed it, it looks like. Leather. Local slave output's pretty good. That's going to increase money in our capital region here, which is good. Now, we won't get a surplus in the capital, but... oh. It's not optional. It seems to imply that there is... oh, nope. We went too many ticks past. All we can get is vegetables. And getting more vegetables in the capital, local monthly food modifier. Meh. Let's save the slot and let's see if we can find something else. Alright, we've got the armies ready to go. We're going to bring them over here. We don't want vegetables. I wanted that leather. Now, this occurs every once in a while. It wants to import grain from Latium. All we'd be giving up, if we allowed them to do that, is we'd be giving up that additional +5 food from the grain. We definitely don't want to give up our capital bonus for the grain, the national manpower thing. But we'd also make some money. See? So we would also, because the first time you export a type of good, you also get a bonus. I don't really think it makes a lot of simulative sense, but it's fine. 0.29 money per month is hard to say no to, and we've already realized that Rome doesn't need the food right now. So let's export the grain, accept the offer, decline the next offer. Let's not go crazy. And then we can import that vegetables to make up for it. From either Paeonia or Macedon. Let's import it from Macedon. Okay. So our armies are moving into position, and then we're going to declare some war on the Samnites here. See, they're going to keep asking to take more of my grain. As long as my capital is only producing this little amount, I'm not going to be sending it away from there. No question. No. So we're going to combine these armies. It's going to be good times. As far as I know, the Samnites don't have any other armies, do they? It's just this 4,000... Oh, that's Thuria. So, I don't know. Are the Samnites at war with somebody else right now? No? I just don't see their army. Maybe they don't have one. Whatever the case. Oh. So here's the aforementioned problem with the Senate. Right now, the Senate is not all about declaring war here. Why? Why do we have so few senators in favor of declaring war? So the military faction... Support is 60%. That's about normal. The populace never seems to support me. target had high tyranny, the populace would totally be about it. Okay. And the religious faction... Our ruler needs more popularity. That's what it comes down to. That would change things a lot. So let's see if we can do something about that in our government here. And we could endorse a military faction, which gives them more seats in the Senate and might give us what we need. So we're going to hold games, which increases our popularity by 0.5 each month. Where are we going to hold those games? Let's hold them in Roma, just because. And what other things can we do? We can grant a holding to him. Not really useful here. Siphon funds. We don't really want him to do that. So I think if we support the military faction, you saw that the military faction was the one that was going to support us the highest. They're at 60%. They're going to keep telling me about grain. Oh, this guy never made it to the army. This is one of the pieces I've had a hard time figuring out what you're supposed to do in this situation. How do you get the Senate to back you? These things all show you the things that are causing it. The only impact I can have on this whole thing is, okay, if I get my ruler to at least 80 popularity, well, then I get a lot more support from every faction. That seems to be the only knob I have to twist here. I think the only other knob I have to twist is to, like, promote the military, which lowers our stability, increases tyranny, but gives the military an extra 10 seats. But it doesn't seem to increase my influence over the Senate. Hello, No Deck. It has been a while. Well, let's try it. Endorse the military faction, see what happens. So we had some stability problems there, but... Okay, it got us enough seats to at least be able to declare it and force it through. There's 45 seats behind declaring a war, so we're going to do that. We're going to call all of our little allied city-states here, and we're going to take their stuff. Declared. So we've got some tyranny having built up from those actions, but, you know, it is what it is. And now we run into the actual combat situation. So you can see there are forts that are shown here. Those forts act similarly to the forts in other games like EU4. So we need to take those down first. Yeah, I don't care about grain. I'm not importing grain, exporting grain to you. This is not happening. And here's all our other allied city-states coming to help. The other thing is if you capture a fort, it will actually control any territory around it, including cross-national borders, unlike in EU4. See how this flipped to me? Because there's a fort in an allied territory right next to it. So I think we're only at war with the Samnites here. Oh, there's a Samnite tiny battle going on over here. Now, the other pieces to this in terms of combat and stuff is you can go in here and adjust your tactics and select unit objective. So this is like you can put your armies on automatic control and say, okay, I want you to go do whatever you do and I don't have to control you anymore. But this is essentially, it's a weird concept. Rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock is what we're looking at here. So shock action does more damage against envelopment and Padma Vuya, but less damage against bottleneck and phalanx. Envelopment does more damage against deception and phalanx, but less against shock and Padma. Like, why do I care about all this stupid rock, paper, scissors stuff? If we look, can we even look at the other armies? We can, right? But we can't see what type of tactic they're using. So I can't pick a counter tactic. So what the hell's the point of this thing? I'm just going to pick the one that makes the most sense. Deception, because we have light cavalry, apparently this is better. And it's better against skirmishing and triplex ACs. Nobody has that. Why? We're going to do bottleneck. Screw it. We're just going to do turtle, because turtles are cool. See, I can't see... I can see the character. I can't see anything about this guy's army. A petitioner approaches. A mature individual by the name of Lucius Voluminous Violens has approached our consul in a private this morning. In a hushed voice, he spoke of a vision of the near future in which he was found by his loved ones, having been struck by divine lightning. With shaking hands, he offered all his worldly goods to the state in return for protection. Wow. Huh. So, he will get 5 loyalty and lose all his money, and the state gets his money. Or we gain some stability if we convince him that all will be well. We're going to take the money. Yeah, that sounds terrible, buddy. We'll help you out. We can afford another invention here. Diplomatic reputation. Omen power. Army morale recovery, sure. Generally speaking, you're going to get all of these pretty quick. Alright, so we're still working on getting this sieged down. You can see it's going by various progresses. So siege accumulation is 4. Fortifications are -1 of the siege progress. We haven't had any breaches yet. I don't know what would cause a breach. Maybe if you have siege engines or something. This one's taking a long time. We're going to jump up to 4 speed, since apparently there's no military conflict worth speaking of here. The first time I did this, this campaign... There we go, we're done. Now we also captured some slaves, sent them back to Ostia and 1 to Rome. The first time I did this campaign, the Samnites had made an alliance with somebody else down here, and it was a lot closer run thing. So, I don't think there's any way you can speed up siege progress. Except through maybe technologies might make this process slower, like lower than 29 days, for example. Because fort defense is increased. Oh, that's exactly the same thing. Okay, so commanders can also improve your siege speed. What do we got here? More grain from Latium. It's not happening. I wish there was a way to mark that I did not want to export this good, so it would stop asking me. And maybe there is, but I just haven't found it yet. Create trade route is what it's asking me to do. I don't want to create a trade route, though. An internal trade route. If you right-click it? No? Nothing for it. Just gotta keep saying no to those things. More inventions being afforded. We're almost done with all of these. And you can see we're getting closer to level 1 martial advances. When we do that, we'll get higher morale of armies, but also higher maintenance costs, unlock some new ideas. Civic advances will increase our population capacity and income. Oratory advances will increase, let's see, country civilization level. That's pretty important. And religious advances will increase omen power and also give some bonuses. Stockpile disappears. It's come to our attention that substantial amount of state food stockpiles in the province of Apulia have seemingly disappeared overnight. The whereabouts of the supplies are debated. Some claim a group of assertive Ordovician merchants swindled an incompetent clerk. Others that a vengeful god spirited them away in anger. In any case, the reserves have severely diminished. So Marcus is the governor, right, of the area, the governor of Magna Graecia. He's ultimately responsible, I think. And so we're going to fire him, apparently. Or we could have to buy it back, so we'd have to spend some money. Can't do that. I think we need to gain some popularity of the consul, so Marcus is going to, you know, go by. So we need a new governor for this area. We could even pick a... Okay, so this was Marcus, was the previous one. Here he was really old anyway. Let's get his younger son here, and member of the Corneli family. Let's make sure they're happy. Right now they're a scorned family. We don't want them to be scorned, so they're gonna make that guy the kid of the family is now the guy in charge. 1 second. Okay, so once this campaign is over, we're going to talk a little bit more about how the internal aspects of this economic system will work. We talked about the trade goods, and that's great, but there are a lot of more pieces going on in the background that it's going to take a bit to explain. So... interestingly, okay, so in order to get this, we have to... Where's the goal here? War exhaustion, total number of cohorts. This is... Oh, is it down here? Yeah, take Apulia. So if we control all of the enemy's provinces in that area, then this would start ticking to us instead of them. Current war score. Oh, a bunch of battles have been won by the enemy. What the hell? My allies just keep going in and getting fought and dying. He's got 12,000 men over there. That's too many. Where did they come from? Well, who are these guys? Okay, so somehow... Yeah, somehow these guys got in a war as well with the Samnites. What is their relationship? They're allies. I wonder if they got that alliance after the war started. Okay. We can take them out. We're just going to finish conquering this thing here. There we go. Now, we're going to go over here, and we're going to say allies can attach to us. This guy's actually out of food, so he was taking some attrition there, but now he's foraging from the friendly area nearby. And the food stores in the area are going down because this army in the province is reinforcing. So let's see if we can't catch these 5,000 that are alone down here. All right. There we go. This is not too dissimilar from other, like, Europa Universalis 4 battles here. You can see there's only one battle line in this case. We are victorious! There we go. That's all we need to do. Actually, you know what? Let's wait here for a second. Continue refilling these stores, if possible. This area does have some food, but it's not friendly. So that's the reason that we were eating into our stores and getting attrition, is you can only refill your food capacity if you have friendly control over the province capital. We don't have friendly control over this province capital. This province capital is controlled by the enemy. Neapolis has sent a formal petition on behalf of the entire province complaining about the harsh ways the government, Lucius Scipio, Cornelius, just got rid of Marcus. Now Lucius is like a harsh guy. Let's open up his thing here. He's proud. He's got good health. Bad health, I guess? Or what is Mentagra? I don't know. And he's ambitious. His taxation policy is causing quite a furor among the landowners who are having to work their slaves to the bone in order to meet tax quotas. It's certainly unusual for our subjects to complain in such a matter. Perhaps we have to consider the arguments carefully. Send a representative to ensure rules are being followed. Would increase my own popularity. I like that. And then Lucius gains 10 corruption. Regardless. Or remove the minister. We gotta leave him in there. He's the best for the job, and we don't want to piss off his family. So he can have his corruption. But we're gonna make sure that the people aren't pissed about it. Oh. We didn't get there in time. I'd like to try to get over there in time for the next big battle. My allies are getting beat. We're gonna make it, though. It's always kind of ridiculous that these battles last for weeks and weeks at a time. Okay. So, now we can go here to what is probably the capital for these guys. Yeah, it's the country capital. Ooh. The city is burning! Burning! So they've been looted, I believe is what that means. Though I don't know where you see the modifiers, like looted or not. There's like usually a bar for temporary modifiers. And I don't know where it is in this interface. So their supplies are short here. So that's a problem. So we're going to start losing strength, I believe. So this siege is going to be tough. $681. Let's see if that goes up or down here. It went down. See, this is the problem. We didn't bring enough food, and we don't control the capital of this province, so we're taking attrition every month, and it's pretty bad. But I'm at 14%. If I wait just a little bit longer, we'll get this. I think this is the province capital. Yeah, it is. It's got to be, because it's the country capital, so it's got to be the province capital. So, once we take it, we'll be able to start getting reinforcements and get food here. New elections coming. We can get the final invention, just to get out of the way. Building bridges. While there's always a certain degree of toying and froying between the incumbent leaders of Rome, Consul Publius Sempronius Sophus and his co-consul Publius Salutius Sophad blah blah are disagreeing more and more, blah blah blah. If we pass it, Publius gains popularity and the co-consul Publius loses popularity. Let's upset the co-consul. Who cares? There's an election coming up. We know that. Following a few days of particularly grueling debates in the Senate, the exact lay of the political landscape has been determined. It seems that Consul Publius will be able to pass his bill by calling in some old favors. So we lose some political influence, but we get some popularity. Yeah, let's do that. Hello, Bolu. Oh, Semporian Baths of Tiber. So Rome loses some support for the military faction, but gets some big bonuses for the next 25 years, it looks like. And loses 10 stability in the process. Yikes. That's a big stability drop, because the consuls are fighting with each other. So here's what I thought. Yeah, honored province. There are some temporary modifiers. The fate of the Republic and that of the Fabius family is and always will be intertwined. Recognizing the plight of our two loyal clients is offered to fill the place that currently cannot be filled by anyone of the right birth. So the Fabian family, apparently, is too small. It doesn't have enough members. Consul, researcher. This guy's 43, but he could do a job. Anyway, I can now choose which person is going to be adopted into the Fabian family. Lucius Cursor or Gaius So Lucius Cursor is an 11-6-11-8. Gaius is 12-8-9-5. Wow. They're both real good. I'm going to take the younger one, though. The Tribunus Militum. He's going to join the family. There you go. We need a new censor, huh? Let's choose Marcus, who was being apparently a terrible governor, but we'll make him censor. It'll be okay. Addressing the good people of Rome this morning on a matter of little importance, found himself completely lost for words. If Consul Quintus were to intervene, he would surely earn the undying gratitude of... blank. However, he becomes friends with himself? Okay. Sure. Those kinds of decisions don't make a lot of sense. I do find that this game in particular has a weird problem that doesn't happen. In EU4, who are you? Well, you're whoever's in charge, and the decisions you're making affect the entire nation 90% of the time. In like a republic in EU4, sometimes you're determining which faction is in power, but that only affects what bonuses you're getting. The mercantile faction, the military faction, whatever, right? In CK2, you control a family, and you care about that specific family, and you care about that specific family doing well in all their jobs and things. You want them to get control of countries, and then if they're in control of those countries, you want to expand their power base. In this game, I don't know what you care about. Do I care about the Fabians? Well, yes, technically I am the Fabian consul right now, but he's going to be replaced by a Cornelius consul in the next election. So why should I expand the Fabian power base? Instead, you just got to balance everything perfectly like some weird omnipotent god-man. Anyway, white peace may be enforced as we have failed to challenge occupation of the war. What? We didn't fail it at all. I'm almost occupying this thing right here. It's just the dice rolls keep going against me. Stop deserting, God. This is awful. Here's the thing. Where's Apulia? Lulia. So we need to control those things. That's what it's saying, is we didn't get control of this territory. That's why it's against us right now. Because I went deeper to take their home area. Alright, now roll the damn dice. Ugh, now we lost that. Alright, come on. There we go. Finally. Alright, this guy has now got to come back. Come back. Get back to where you once belonged. Because we are way low on troops. I guess I should have just come up here and fought a lot, but, uh-oh. Is he going to try to intercept me here? Alright, so they're finally back in a situation where they're gaining some manpower. Because I can't go and fight him with only 7,000 of my 12,000 guys. Somebody fell ill. Don't care about the grain. Don't want the white peace, though. Damn it, I can't. I gotta wait until I get some more reinforcements. One more month. Oh, never mind. Another freaking battle's going on. Let's do it. Really, we just need these areas here, right? We just need these 3, and then it'll flip back to us. He's fighting another different power, and now I'm gonna pick up the fight when that power fails. Alright, I think we're doing better. Like, this interface is... Oh, okay, it's right there. Never mind. Couldn't find the flag. Why do I have one of my supply trains, like, on the front line? Why would that happen? Oh, it's one of the other minor faction supply trains, I bet. Okay, so we won that stupid guy. Alright. So somebody's conquering that thing, which will flip this back in our favor in a second, I believe. So when that goes, boom. Okay, now we're at 75 again. Okay, we're victorious in the war, I think. Oh no, we're victorious in a battle, and we captured somebody. Alright, so we have all the forts now. Except this one. Can we force them to sue for peace and take what we want? Let's find out. We want this, this, and we want this, and we want this. We want everything we can get, basically. And it looks like that'll work. If we take this last fort, then we can take that too. Oh, liberation. We can free some slaves to gain some popularity. Yeah, sure. So... now that we've got a full food capacity thing again, let's go get this fort, and then we can take all of it. In that sense, this game kind of feels like on easy mode sometimes, because, I mean, there's aggressive expansion, but eh. So their whole army's gone now. We finally crushed it. There's 1,000 men right there. That's it. Unfortunately, is there a penalty for the blockade? There should be, but there's not. The Tribune of the Soldiers, Gaius, as well as those under his charge, have been doing a disappointing job. It seems that having issues with them keep reporting back to us how difficult they are to work with. He claims it's simply a matter of bureaucracy being difficult and that the funds for his office have been lacking lately. It would be most likely to work out if they were given more funds to work with. This guy. This guy. Ugh. The corrupt traitor will not be given anything. So he loses to corruption. Gosh, yeah, his corruption's insane. He has a base corruption of 20 because he's crafty. What a douche. Here, Silver, are you happy now, Gaius? At least he'll stay loyal. Yeah, his loyalty's actually bad. And it's going down. Because his power base is too big. Alright, fine. Have some of that, then we can give him some temporary loyalty. We can get a new omen. This is going to be a tax, so we can get some more money now that the fighting is basically done. Ooh, xenophobia. A wave of xenophobia has swept across Rome, resulting in form and values being regarded with distrust. All intends today's debate agreed, however, that Publius has crossed a line today when he accused Consul Quintus of indulging in barbaric Hedui practices. Yikes. So, this is, again, why do I care which character's getting which trait? It doesn't matter. None of them are me. None of them represent me at all. Ugh. This is the thing that drove me away from the game in the first place, is the character interactions do not feel good. I don't feel like I'm connected to anything. Doesn't help that I think both of the consuls having the same name happens way too damn often. Let's see. Yeah, Consul Quintus versus Consul Lucius. Okay. He gains 10 prominence and popularity. Or he gains prominence and popularity. God damn it. Fine, turn the other cheek. I don't care. Now we have a disloyal character. Fantastic. His power base is high. We could give him a holding, which will increase his loyalty temporarily. Let's give him one in Ostia. Alright, so he's loyal again, but it's still going to keep going down because his power base is too big. Probably shouldn't have given him a new holding, only made it worse. And, geez, look how long these damn sieges are taking. And this is the mod that makes the sieges take less time. And it just keeps asking me about the grain. I don't want it. Don't do it. No thanks. And now the defenders are deserting. Ay, ay, ay. Going to speed 5. Come on. Apparently, I promised this guy something, but I don't remember doing that. Luckily, he doesn't really have a power base. Alright, we finally won the dang war. And now we can ask for everything we ever wanted. Including this piece. Bingo. Alright, so there's nothing else that you can get here like there is in, I mean, become subject, but there's no, like, just give me a bunch of money, too. It's just like, hey, this peace offer will increase your rank to regional power. You're damn right it will. Now, after you conquer... Oh. After you, completely annex somebody, you then have to deal with the characters that came from there. So... sometimes entire families want to come over, but not always. So here, for example, we can say every character in this area will be put to death. Or we can say, these are just little bonuses or penalties here. Pass judgment on the important families. Let's just... the enemies deserve no quarter when it comes to the Samnites, but the Lucanians will pass judgment on specific families. The family of Cassus Herminus was an important family in their old homeland. They will be considered minor characters here. So this is basically, I get to look at this and go, are any of these guys worth keeping as minor characters? If I keep them, I lose popularity. I don't think any of them are super good. Let's get rid of them. Oh no, my army's trapped. We're gonna have to declare war on these guys. Immediately. Because I can't... I didn't realize that was gonna be a problem. Oh no, we're declaring war on them, just cause. Oh, we don't have claims? We need a claim. Alright, covert actions, fabricate claim, go. Now this is call for peace. That already happened. I mean... we're not at war, so why is that still there? We have prisoners abroad. We got to pick a new family. Now that we're in a regional power, we have to have a new family added. So we're picking one of these. The Flavian family the Magellan family or the Sempronius family. Tribune of the Plebs. He's kind of okay, but he's not very good. His military's terrible. 8737. This guy's a party leader. He seems on the ball. Let's get him. He's spawned a new family now. So we now have the Sempronii family. The family is scorned, however. Semproniis only have one job, and they want more than one job. So let's go take a look at what the Cornellis are doing. They have a lot of jobs there. We could maybe replace this one with somebody from the... Yeah, we could do that. Bingo. Now they're happy. Prisoners abroad. Ransom prisoner, I guess. Sure. I don't actually know how this is working or why they have our prisoners. This place is still burning. That can't be good. We're still trying to fabricate a claim here. But here's the main thing, I think. Trade, characters, missions? Missions. Control Campania. We did manage to get all of Campania under our control, so up to 15 pops in Capua are assimilated to Roman culture. Yay! Now, if we look at Neapolis, they're all Hellenic, and a lot of them are Italic now. So remember, we started here, a lot of these guys were not... no, they're still Italiotian. So only 2 of them have actually converted in this whole time. Even though, well, governor policy flipped back. We wanted them to be cultural assimilation. Because I don't want them to be Neapolitan. Now, we could also try integrating these guys. We just need them to like us more. So, we're going to change our bellicose stance to mercantile, I think. Actually, let's check and first see what these guys are. This guy's mercantile, 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 mercantile. That means they will like us a lot more if we are mercantile too. Opinion of others with mercantile stance, plus 30. Boom. Okay. So now, how do these guys like us? They love us. Look at that. Start integration. And start integration. And this guy doesn't like us enough. Whoa, why does he not like us? Oh, I never actually improved their opinion of us before. These guys, they're loving us too. Alright, start integration. There we go. Seems that the people of Marissa feel robbed after becoming a client state under our rule. They are looking for opportunities to get out of the alliance. Though they are recent allies, they have played an important role in our armies already. Maybe it's time to make some concessions. What? Who is this? Who are you? These guys, you're being integrated right now. So, no, I don't care. You get nothing. Good day, sir. Alright. Now, do we have that claim fabricated? Yes, I think so. Utterly tired of waiting for his promised role. Has been quietly whispering. I don't know what your promised role is. I don't... the game doesn't help you with that at all. By the way, you promised this guy a thing. I don't know. I just clicked through a fucking menu. Anyway. Yeah. We're going to declare war on all of these guys. This guy and all of his friends. His friends are all of these guys. Okay. Let's raise another cohort of whatchamacallums. Supply train. Just so we can have 2. Rome gains a claim. Oh, for many long years, those in control of Epirate lands have interfered in the region they call Magna Graecia. Now, with their territory beginning to overlap with their sphere of influence, it has become all too apparent that there is only one solution. We get free claims on all areas in Epirus and Illyria. Dang. That is a decent chunk of areas. So once this supply train is finished, we'll be okay. This province is pretty quickly running out of food. Because we've got an army there that we can't leave. Maybe we could... Oh, we can't import. Because there's no ports in the province. Because this guy's freaking right there. Alright, let's just declare the war. The Senate is behind me. They want to take it. Oh, our capital gained an extra trade route, which we could potentially use to get hemp. We don't have any hemp in the capital, so we'll increase local slave output by 10%. Let's do it. Oh, it would come from Apulina. Let's instead consider... Oh, all of these are internal. Olives? Olives would come from somebody else. It would increase slave happiness, but you know what? The slaves are already 100% happy, I bet. They almost always are. Where is it? Yeah, slaves are pretty dang happy. Some of the slaves are not Roman culture, so they are unhappy. Okay, we'll take the olives. Right there. Okay. Anyway. Oh, we're at war. Okay. So hopefully this province doesn't get completely screwed anymore. We're victorious. It's finally going to switch around. I guess I could bring the Navy around here, maybe. That could help. No risk of civil war, because we've got a disloyal character, but he's pitiful. Nobody cares about him. So who are we at war with? I just went to war with a bunch of people, I'm not sure. Okay, so Cronin, Croton, and then these guys here. Hang on. This is a different nation from this? Oh, jeez, I thought I declared war on that guy too. Oh well, this will be enough. And there's a road going across here. Is that the Appian Way? It might be. I don't know if it is just like a visual thing or if that is actually having an effect. Oh. Okay. Who is this guy? Why do I owe him anything? Like, go jump in a lake. Smear his reputation. Get out of here. I don't care. You don't mean anything to me. Oh, I forgot to move that over there. That's too bad. We lost. Hey, bipartisan support, sure. So, yeah, there's still too many damn things that are annoying with this game, and it crashed on me. So I guess we're going to call it there, guys. I don't think this is ready for the prime time. So, have a good one. We'll consider doing a different stream in the future. But not this one. Bye.